Dearest gentle listeners, you are listening to the Ladies Bridgerton, the talk of the town. We are your effervescent hosts, your neighbourhood-friendly Kiwi, Tash from Middle-earth, New Zealand.
And Patty, Regency romance enthusiast, whose current chapter of her story takes in Ohio.
Settle down onto your favourite settee as we delve into the lives of the elite and illustrious ladies, lords, and royalty of the ton. This Bridgerton podcast is two friends talking romance, symbolism, Easter eggs, and deep diving into the connections of our favourite characters. We cover both books and TV series, and therefore this podcast will contain spoilers.
Dearest listeners, today is the Hawkins Ball. This is the turning point. Colin knows what he wants, but he also has so much to lose. Mama B begins to smell the pollen in the air. Debling uses his rank and status to Colin block to get his dance. And did Penelope use Whistledown to call Colin out? Let's discuss.
And there suddenly is a lot to discuss in this episode. I think we're going to need some prayers, that we're going to get through it.
No sorrows, just prayers.
Just prayers. Sorrows? No. Sorrows are for Colin.
Yeah, sorrows, Colin. Prayers for us.
Okay, so going...
Are we going to make haste?
Yeah, I know how to make haste. I was trying to look through my notes to remember where we're up to.
Sash! We must make haste!
Hop onto your horses, everybody. Now we must make haste into today's episode. Actually, gallop along and make haste kind of go hand in hand. So it's kind of funny that they
really do.
They really do. Maybe that could have been an interesting love interest for Eloise with sensitivities. Sense and sensitivity.
For sure.
What I was trying to do was I was trying to remember where we kind of start in this episode. The Bridgertons arrive at the party. We're at the Hawkins Ball for this episode. The Bridgertons roll up and they're why? Okay, after the fourth time clicking it finally hit play. Okay, we are back into recording, and Patty's been telling me for some reason we paused and it was refusing to pause, but everyone must know about Patty's lack of snackage today.
Well, I have the cracker. I just do not have cheese. It makes me mad.
As I referred to Patty, she is crackers. She doesn't have the crackers.
Oh, I am straight up cracker today.
That's okay. I'll be the cheese. I am the cheese to your crackers. We can go a Halloween outfit dressed as cheese and crackers.
Cheese and crackers. I think that would be funny.
Oh, it's like in How I Met Your Mother, they go as a group outfit. And it's like a couple's outfit, and Ted doesn't want to be left out. So Marshall and Lily go as Salt and Pepper. And you know what? Try and guess what Ted goes as.
To Salt and Pepper?
Just Salt and Pepper. Apparently, it's quintessential to have this spice or herb along with salt and pepper. They go hand in hand, apparently. You're never going to guess it. It's cumin.
No.
He's like...
I would have been like maybe garlic powder.
I know that's what you would think, but he's like, you can't have salt and pepper without cumin.
Okay, Ted. Okay, Ted.
So I'll be the cheese to your cracker. Actually, one of my favorite drag queens is called Miss Cracker. So back,
do not know.
She's hilarious. Galloping back to the point, the Bridgertons are arriving at the Hawkins Ball in their carriage. Benedict and Colin both commit faux pas by not being gentlemen to their sisters.
The girls do too. There's going to be a lot of etiquette discussion because there's a lot of etiquette breakage in this from everyone in the ton.
And so part of me wonders whether obviously because Bridgerton producers say this is fantasy, don't really go by Regency rules completely because we're not going to. But I also just kind of wonder whether it's just partly the Bridgerton family. As in, they are so relaxed with each other that they very rarely... I think Anthony follows...
And that's possible.
Anthony follows the rules a lot more because he feels the pressure of the family, whereas the other siblings have been raised by their mother, who allows them in the family drawing room or dining room for dinners, who hangs out with her children in ways that is non-typical. So I wonder whether they're like, you know what, we've grown up with, like, we know the social etiquette rules, and when we're with certain people, we will follow social etiquette, but when it's us, it goes out the window.
I mean, she's done some formal chastising when a faux pas occurs in public. A little bit, but she is a little more and I think because of their status and because she is, she's more like her father than her mother, she's more indulgent of her children. So, but yeah, like Benedict leaves the carriage and society dictates he is to turn and offer his hand to the first lady coming out of the carriage, which is Francesca. But she's also committing a faux pas because she exits the carriage without waiting for him to turn and offer his hand. And then Colin comes out of the carriage and he starts walking, tugging on his coat. He's not thinking about Eloise whatsoever.
And I do actually wonder whether this was a faux pas because Eloise even clocks, are you still mad at me? Why won't you hop on me out of the carriage? And Eloise is not the sort to really follow, but this must have been quite the slight for even Eloise to be like, hey, bro, are you mad at me? It is the first time that we really see the impact
that she's
of the
anxious about it.
Well, no, the impact of the conversation that they had under the willow tree, because you can see that Colin is Colin. I've been watching too much.
This is an Outlander. Why are you talking about Colin?
Dairy Girls. Colin, Uncle Colin.
Oh, yeah. See, the Colin I know is Uncle Colin. They don't call him Uncle because he's the laird, but he's the laird of Clan Mackenzie in Outlander.
And rest assured, dear listeners, although my parents are not coming over today to bring me coffee, my dear husband has. So I am on point because this is my second coffee of the day. He's a good boy.
But yeah, he gave her the cut, basically. She acknowledged it and said no, he's in his own thought. And then they just, take off.
Well, it's the first time that we really, I think this family, the Bridgerton family, have a real expectation of Colin to always be that jovial, happy. And the only other time that they noticed him acting this way was with the Marina situation because the whole family was so confounded. They weren't angry with him, like they weren't angry at how it went down, but I think they noticed the such a shift in him and his behavior that they're like, hey, this doesn't seem right. And when he is acting that way, it is so notable because of how, I don't feel like we've really gotten that much happy Colin through seasons 1 and 2 like we do in the books. Like he is very much Benedict in the series. That is how he is in the books. So I think it makes some of the sentences that they use, I think they have mixed up the book and the TV series a little bit too much where they're expecting us to know Colin's personality from the book and apply that knowledge to the series to make sense of, he's usually really, really happy, because we don't get that many happy moments of Colin. We get him singing with his family, returning from travels, like he makes, the horse jokes, but we don't.
He's performative.
Yeah.
He has to earn it and he doesn't want to burden anyone. He doesn't want to be a burden. So he is always happy Colin for everyone. When he is in his feels, where is he? In his room.
Yeah.
He doesn't come out until he can control himself. And this is why in the second half, it is so important that Penelope accepts him and handles him and loves him when he is expressing his anger and he is so angry. She doesn't understand why he is avoiding her because that's what he's always done. He cannot be angry, upset, or any of that around his family because there's too many kids and he felt like a burden. So he kept his anger to himself. When he's angry, he broods and he goes off and he broods and he isolates.
And I think this is a direct way that we see the impact of Edmund's death is his mother was so depressed that I think that it is where he really learned his performative behavior where he really has to uplift everyone all the time. And if he's not uplifting them, then he's bringing them down and he cannot be the cause for his mum to go back into her depression, her postnatal depression, her post-loss of a husband depression.
He's become an empath because of it, because like he said to Penelope, you being upset pains me. It pains me to see you upset. He cannot handle when people he loves are upset, are having negative feelings because he feels them.
I think he was born an empath, but the loss of his father heightened his skills in how to deal with those situations.
He developed coping mechanisms that helped him feel like less of a burden in a family of 8 children that now has a single mother, and a 19-year-old boy taking care of everything. And that boy's still in school. Like you and I have talked before that Colin was actually the father figure for probably at that point 3 or 4 years
Mm-hmm.
before both Anthony and Benedict were completely done with school. So, and that's why I think Anthony and Colin have that antagonism toward each other, because Colin was doing it. Anthony comes home and takes away his purpose, kind of usurps him,
Yeah.
but never acknowledges that he did it. Never acknowledge. He always only acknowledges his own duty, and not that he's ever gotten help from anyone else. And, you know, Colin was doing the deal for a couple of years, and then he goes off to school. And something we all have to notice too is that the first two sons got to go off to Oxford or Cambridge, or whichever was it, Oxford they went to for college. Mm-hmm. They went to Eton, they went to Oxford. Colin didn't get that. He chose travel. Oxford wasn't even talked about with him. Like, he was done because he's the third son.
Because only your first two children needed to be educated, because
right.
There's Anthony, and then there's the spare, and then Colin's just the leftover.
Right. So, I mean, yes, he got to go on travels and everything like that, but
which is funny because
that's almost like a consolation prize.
Out of Benedict and Colin, I would say Colin's more of the intellectual out of the two of them.
Right. Colin's more intellectual, Benedict's more artistic.
Mm-hmm.
I see Benedict, like, going to the art school made sense, but we know that he got educated, that it was required for the first and second son to be educated. Yeah. So, but Colin never being acknowledged for what he did, and always putting other people first because he wants them to be happy, because for him to feel safe and for him to feel comfortable, everybody else in the room has to be comfortable. Like, even the engagement party, he knows that something's up with Penelope because he can feel it. She's shirking his gaze. He can feel this ick coming off of her. And just, there's so many people in the room, and please, empaths, everybody knows when there's people be people in, it is hard and tiring. And it got to the point where he could only focus on Penelope because there's too much going on in the room.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get up to the episode where, I mean, not that I want to, I'm not excited to talk about it, but I'm excited to dig into the feelings that he was having, because I think we really have like a lot of thoughts on angry, angsty, hurt Colin, mm-hmm. and how, coming from an empathetic person, we can understand those feelings a little bit more and rationalize them a little bit more than what some other people are. Oh, he's just angry and he's just punishing her. So for now, let's move on into Stowell House, which, as we talked about, Hawkins Ball.
We've been mixing them. Yeah, we've been mixing them because I thought about the apology thing, and that's Stowell House. That's not Hawkins.
In prep for today, because we're going to do a double recording, hopefully, if we can stay on track. I was writing my notes for Stowell House for side stories, so that's why my brain's a bit.
Yeah. And I've been confusing them too as we were talking about it. So yeah, Hawkins Ball is everybody walking in, and
yes, yeah, which is why I like to have notes, because otherwise my brain will jump between. Patty's like, we can just do it off the fly, and I'm like, we can, and we have the knowledge, but my brain needs focusing.
Well, teacher Tosh, you can focus.
Yeah,
too dysregulated for focus. So.
I'll be the structure, and you be the entertainment.
I'm gonna be the chaos. I bring the chaos.
What is the opposite of chaos? Antonym for chaos.
Is there a P antonym for chaos? So I can be, you know what would have been nice if I'd have ever figured out a DoorDash order? But
peace and chaos.
Peace. Oh, I am not peaceful, Patty, today.
No.
I don't want to send it. Yeah.
Or for an N, it's neat. Neat Natasha. Please don't ever call me Natasha. Tidy Tosh. Tidy Tosh.
Mayhem.
Don't you even mayhem
yes no I got it. Pandemonium Patty.
I'm
bringing the pandemonium.
Okay, what's a synonym
for peace?
Chaos.
That's a T.
No, for chaos.
That is, pandemonium is a synonym for chaos.
No,
trouble.
Tumultuous Tosh.
Tumultuous Tosh and Pandemonium Patty.
Yeah, that's quite the duo. Okay, so the first coupling we see entering into not Stowell House, but Hawkins Ball, is Portia and Penelope. And Penelope's immediately searching the room. Immediately after they walk in, it's followed by Eloise and Colin. And then obviously Benedict and that as well. But I want to talk about Eloise and Colin first. So immediately Colin is accosted by a group of women fawning over him about because my brain was immediately trying to go because I've just written my notes. So I'm like, I should not have written the notes for Stowell House before recording this because my brain keeps thinking.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is what I love about the scene, and I didn't notice it until my what's the word? ADHD, pull it out of my brain. Detox, my Bridgerton detox.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted it to the group already, but I noticed for the first time that Benedict ducks. The girls are coming. They're coming for Colin, and he ducks, and Fran laughs at him. She looks at him and she's like, she finds a lot of humor in the fact that he ducks.
What
and then when
what sibling
coming
is
down
he?
the stairs?
No. What sibling?
What,
Mirror.
Francesca?
No, the mirror scene to this. Eloise ducking to hide from
behind
Lord
behind Gregory.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same, but that's what, and you see Eloise too, like when the girls come up, because she doesn't want to deal with girls that are boy chasing. So as soon as these girls are coming for Colin, she's like, see you, bro. And she just sidles off. She's like, I'm gone. Well, I'm not dealing with this.
Episodes 3 and 4 are really interesting episodes for me because it is so Polin and Eloise centric that Colin and Eloise are following a very, very similar path. And episode 3 especially, this is when Eloise starts to become hyper aware of the women that are around her that she's surrounding herself with and how she just has zero tolerance for it.
Yeah. But we also know the reason we know this, the reasons episode 3 and 4 are so important for this growth is because Cressida is now so involved in trying to catch Debling that she's leaving Eloise on the sidelines. Aside from where she asked Eloise to help her,
yes,
she's actively pursuing a man, which is not what Eloise wants at all. Eloise wants nothing to do with that. And it was her live on Earth version of hell, what she went through at the balloon festival.
Yes.
With Penelope and Cressida, and watching her two friends, two women she at that point admired, both of them, like, why are you debasing yourselves like this? And she actually turns out to be a pretty good conversationalist and, keeping the conversation going with Debling for Cressida. And you would think that she would be a little more socially awkward and that she would start soapboxing and stuff with him, but she doesn't. She's a good wingman, and she's very helpful and actually very good in a social situation, which we wouldn't expect from Eloise. But she hated every minute of it.
Well, so Eloise now she's of the gab,
right? And we see that she's also gotten the training that Daphne did.
Yes,
in that moment, we see that. But she's done. That was earlier that day. She's
can you
imagine
done. Eloise at finishing school?
Eloise and Penelope. Well, most of their finishing occurred at their house with tutors.
Yeah.
In Patty Cannon, because Portia could not afford finishing for all of the girls, Penelope got finished off at Bridgerton House by being Eloise's friend. Like, she got pulled into dance lessons. She got pulled into etiquette lessons because she was there and she thought it was fun. She liked learning, right? But that is why her two older siblings are a little more crass and she's a little more refined and a little more
I do actually wonder, and I think it's also partly because she aspires to be more like Violet than her own mother, because she's always been around Violet, and I think she admires her so much that subconsciously she acts more like her.
But because she is just a friend and she isn't at Bridgerton House all the time for everything, she missed out on some important lessons, like being prepared for any topic of conversation. Ladies went through training for that, to be prepared to talk about whatever the man wants to talk about. And Penelope is very socially awkward, so she missed that training. But yeah, like, Eloise is toast. I mean, think about any other ADHD person in the world. Like, she's already dealt with people at the balloon festival that was earlier that day. The ball is the same night. So she doesn't want to be around a gaggle of women. She doesn't want to talk about her non-planned wedding. She doesn't want to talk about what she's going to wear when she gets married. She just can't people anymore. She cannot pretend anymore. So she chooses to stand against the wall to avoid those conversations.
Are we sure that the ball is the same day?
Or is it just... because it's the same day, because Will and Alice talking at the balloon thing are talking about the hunt, and she says she's been wanting to stay home. He said he's been wanting to visit the club, and she goes, do we have to go to tonight's ball? So the Hawkins ball is that night.
But they don't go to it.
They don't. That's how we know it's the same ball, because they're not present.
Yeah, okay.
So it is the same night.
Yeah. It just seems crazy. It seems crazy to me to have two major events in one day.
All the Regency peerage did was social engagements. They did not work. So
but,
because they did not work,
the exhaustion of 2 outings in a day.
Oh yeah.
I'm an extrovert, and that's too much.
I'm an extroverted introvert. Like, I can do it when I have to, but I wear out and then I need to isolate. I very much feel Eloise at this ball. Like, that would be me.
It is just the start of November at the moment, right? So this recording won't post for 2 weeks, but as it stands in New Zealand, it is currently the 3rd of November. And if I look at my calendar for December, I already have 3 Christmas parties, 1 trip away, and 2 Christmas parties for Christmas Day. So that's 5 Christmas parties in total, 2 of which are a Saturday and Sunday back to back, the days leading up to Christmas. And I'm exhausted, guys. December is a running jump for me. And when I say running jump, I mean jump off a cliff, because it's too much. It's just
I have never planned that much of a social calendar, and everything I'm doing is basically not a party and not a big group of people. I'm going to see
Greek.
No.
No,
I'm not. No.
Patty's best skin. Agree.
I'm a mix of German, Irish, and Cherokee Indian, which you can't see the Cherokee. Well, it's actually Showan, which is a faction of Cherokee, but you can't see that at all because I'm only like 1/32 of it. But yeah, English, Irish, German are the coloring that I have for sure.
Well, in New Zealand, because we've integrated so much with the native Māori people, the minimum requirement to be recognized as that heritage is a 30-second. So you would still be recognized in New Zealand as a native.
I found out after the fact that after my grandmother passed away, which I was not trying to go to traditional college again. I ended up doing college online after that because I was a working adult. But we found out my grandmother at the time, because my dad had tried to figure out how to prove it for me for like scholarship purposes and whatever, because I was the first person in my family that was going to go to college, right? And I was going to go to Berklee College of Music in Boston. I had enough financial aid to pay for school, but I didn't have financial aid that would pay for transport to and from so that I could come home on holidays and stuff. And that was concerning to me. I was a small town girl, and Boston's not small town.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to come home, and there was no money for that. So my dad was looking into seeing if he could link me to be able to get some financial aid from the Cherokee tribe. We didn't find that documentation until after my grandmother passed away. She didn't think she had it anymore, but she did. It was just buried deep in her life.
Buried.
So, that kind of stuff you find when somebody passes away. But yeah, so
we were. My granddad was a bit of a charmer in his youth, and we thought that we may find children hidden somewhere in his past, but we did not. All I found was the most gorgeous telegram from a few months before they got married, and he wrote her a telegram saying, "No time to send a letter, but I just want to let you know that I love you, and I'll see you soon."
Aww.
And I bawled my eyes out, like absolutely destroyed me
sweet.
Emotionally. It was really, really sweet to see, because my granddad he was not someone who, I mean, he was Greek, and he was raised in Cyprus in the 1920s. And so it was a very different time. And I can see how he was even a whole century apart from Bridgerton, but a lot of those kind of values still in Cyprus, they were very, very similar to Regency England, where, my bupple would say, up until I got married, I'd never seen a woman's ankles. Like, that was shocking to see a woman's ankles. I wasn't allowed to take my wife out, well, fiance, when they're engaged, he's like, we weren't allowed to go anywhere unchaperoned. It was always a cousin or uncle, like a immediate family relative would have to chaperone us, and be made sure that up until their wedding day that she was completely pure. Now, same as Regency times, you were allowed to do whatever you wanted with Kiwi women because they weren't of, in the Greek equivalent, the ton, but they weren't ladies. But if you were a Greek woman, completely different set of expectations how you would treat them compared to a Kiwi, which is funny. So I think that's also partly why I kind of relate to Bridgerton and these stories, is because I've grown up listening to my bapu share his life growing up, not growing up in New Zealand. He came here when he was 20 something. I can't remember, mid 20s. But yeah, really, really similarly kind of the what do you call it? Not dating, but the courting was
the courtship. Yeah.
The courtship kind of rules for a Cypriot Greek family was very, very similar to Regency time. So I love these kinds of stories. And I grew up with my grandma, my AER, who had books all about, Regency romance. That's what I grew up, like you with your grandma. That's what I grew up reading. And now let's get back to the point of
okay,
Miss
so
Stowell.
Well, no, not Stowell. We're at Hawkins.
Hardigan.
I just wanted to say, like, I feel Eloise here because she can't people anymore. She doesn't want to be around strangers, and Cressida's busy, and she's still actively avoiding Penelope. But they're both competing for Debling. Well, so
that I actually have notes, but that's from Stowell House. That's something that I noticed, but I talk about it in the next episode.
We'll talk about it, but it'll be in like an hour.
Yeah. Maybe
Let's
two.
Be fair.
Maybe two. Okay, so let's talk about sex, baby. No, let's talk about Miss Hardigan. So she's one of the gaggle of women who approached Colin, and you can tell that he is really struggling to keep up the facade of charming Colin. Miss Hardigan is very roundabout, but he knew what she was putting down. She's very roundabout asking him to dance. He doesn't even acknowledge her comment. I can't remember what exactly it was that she said.
She said, "You're something about his heroism, and are you just as heroic on the dance floor?"
On the dance floor, yes, thank you. He completely flat out ignores that comment. Like, she was definitely fishing for a dance invitation, or you know what I mean.
Well, and here's the thing, though, in all of these situations with Colin, because we've had, and this is where we're going to break this, because we've had conversation in Tangent Queens about how the gender roles are kind of flipped, and not just Benedict and Tilly, but Colin and Penelope. Their courtship is very backwards because he is wanting her to declare herself. Everything he's doing is trying to get her to declare her feelings first, which women cannot do. And I feel like the conversation with Violet is reminding him he's the man in the relation, because he is so worried about what if it's not reciprocated. He's acting like the feminine. These girls are acting in a masculine way. Women could not show their interest. Yet all these girls, when they get in a group, they're bolder and they're acting very masculine. They are trying to get dances without being outwardly rude and seeming as fast or forward. And that's and the reason he doesn't acknowledge them is because, as the feminine, like, he doesn't want to have to dance with them, and it's better just to pretend like he didn't even hear them say anything.
Well, the thing is, the reason that he has the feminine energy is because back in those times, women weren't allowed to own houses, have money. They had no standing. They had no value other than their bodies, essentially, their ability to be mothers, their ability to birth an heir. That was all they were good for. Maybe something pretty to look at. They weren't married for their stellar conversationalist abilities. They were just, how good looking were they? Could they have kids? So Colin, in this instance, feels very much like a woman. I have nothing to offer. I only have myself and my body, albeit a very beautiful body. And that is why he has that very feminine energy in the season of, like, he associates himself more as a woman, of not having anything to offer.
And again, we're going to go back to child psychology and the law of birth order. the first and the second are off doing their training and off doing their own thing. And he gets excluded a lot because he is several years younger than them. In the books, I know the ages are different in the show, but in the books, he is 5 years younger than Benedict. And we can say, like, Benedict is close to 30 at this point. We know Anthony was, but Colin is only 22 to 23 years old because he was 1 and 20 in season 2. So there is several years age difference. So who did he hang out with the most? His sisters. He was not privy. He did get fencing lesson stuff just because he's a boy, but he didn't get all the other education on how to run an estate or any of that like his brothers did. And they left him out of a lot of stuff because he was so much younger. Like he couldn't go to look at Gregory. Gregory is the example. He's so much younger. I can't believe you're getting married before I could go to one tavern with you. That's how Colin felt with the brothers. But he's surrounded. There's Colin, Daphne, Eloise, and Francesca are stair steps, very close in age. So where was he when all of these girls were getting their education at home?
Yeah.
The dancing lessons, the etiquette. And so he's hearing that over and over. You don't express if you like somebody, you don't let them know. They have to tell you first. So he's getting all of that. He's a part of all of that. And I think that plays into it too. Plus, he's naturally sensitive. So growing up amongst all of the sisters, being the third son means there's almost an exclusion. Like there's a manliness that comes with being the heir. And then there's a manliness that comes with being the second. And then Colin was treated like the baby.
In the famous words of Mean Girls, you can't sit with us.
Yeah. And Colin was treated like he was the charmed baby. Violet thought he was going to be the last one. And then boom, 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 boom. Because nobody expected every pregnancy
boom, or bang it, bang, bang, bang.
Or both. Her and Edmund had a love. I'm just saying. A little boom, ba boom, 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 ba boom, boom, baby. That super bass. And then bang, bang. Just pulling out both songs. So yeah.
All right, so Miss Hardigan was trying to lure Colin into a dance. He sees straight through them in the way that they do not even exist to him. He is looking past them and searching the room for Penelope.
Yeah, and he sees her instant.
Yeah. It is like he has
we go
this,
from
like,
the boy
sense of like
we go from the boy at the moon ball, like the moon, the half moon ball, full moon ball, whatever it is. We see that dude looking around for a little bit before he sees her because she's now dressing different to now he's like just like she was in yellow. Yeah. She might as well be wearing yellow. He spots her right away.
Yeah, which is funny because I put my highlighted notes in yellow today. So Penelope and Cressida spot Debling at the same time. And they practically like race. Like they are trying to run as fast as they... Does that sound?
My son's stimming.
I was like, that sounds like a cockatoo.
He just randomly will go.
Okay. I was like,
stim.
Did you get a bird that you didn't tell me about, Patty?
No. And his does sound more like a bird, but Smaug does the same thing, kind of. But I always said his sounds like a pterodactyl.
Which is funny because when Ezra was born, he didn't cry, that he would occasionally make these like, Aah! And I'm like, I used to call him my little pterodactyl.
That's how it comes out. It's just out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and it's like,
yeah. Our special boys.
Like Cameron's is more like like a bird. I don't know. Just out of nowhere. And I'm like sitting here like, and then you're like, what's that? I'm like, oh, I think she heard Cameron.
Yeah. So Penelope and Cressida are racing to be the first one to talk to Lord Debling. And Cressida wins that race.
The longer legs win. I'm just saying.
I know. Like, it is hard having little legs, people. You do not understand all the ways that we suffer. And so Penelope
tried so hard.
She did. And she like basically just turns around and admits defeat. She does not want a repeat of the balloon scene where she's basically in this three-way conversation. She's not about that life. So she turns and she's kind of just like scanning the crowd when she hears Colin's name be mentioned. Now, this is a really interesting part because there are so many double conversations that are happening right now. Miss Kenworthy asks Colin where he found such courage to stop the balloon. Colin looks past the girls that he's talking to. Once again, they're invisible to him. And he's basically answering to Penelope But the audio description says his heart is thumping looking at her. And he answers.
Well, and if you notice the edges of the shot that she is in kind of soften, and it all like it kind of blurs, and it's literally just her, like the light
no
almost, but it's almost like she is exuding the light in that moment.
Yeah.
Like I love that camera work and how they it was so well done, and you understood his focus was her, and it's like no one else in the room exists. What you see there is similar to when they have the wedding dance and we as the audience see everybody disappear.
Yeah.
But in that moment it's depicted differently, where the whole periphery blurs and it's just her in the center. She is his center. He has centered himself on her at this point.
I mean, the galaxy is centered around, well, actually, it's a black hole, but our solar system is centered around. I was like, I've chosen
our solar.
I was like,
our solar system is centered around a sun. I know.
I've chosen the wrong analogy, and our galaxy is centered around a black hole, but our solar system is centered around a sun. Oh, it's a bit. That was a bit hilarious. Of a dark analogy. Sorry, people.
Hilarious.
No, all I can think of is black hole.
Well, and I want to point out too, because we're talking about these multiple conversations, is also that when Cressida first walks up to Debling and Penelope, like we see Penelope, and he caught Penelope out of the side of his eye at the balloon scene. Yeah. So you can't tell me he doesn't know she's there. And the fact that Cressida looks at her twice when she makes the comment about her ankle and that she can still dance on it.
Yeah.
So this scene and the way it's played tells me still that Debling is playing these two girls against each other and using their competition.
Yeah.
He's using their competition with each other.
He's rewarding Cressida for winning the race.
He is, but not because he has any intentions toward her. He is rewarding her to get at Penelope. It's all his goal is Penelope.
Well, and that's the thing, because I was looking, obviously doing my notes for Stowell House. He has no interest in her.
None.
I feel like he is just using Cressida as ammunition against Penelope to increase Penelope's interest to get what he wants.
Exactly.
So I do actually feel for Cressida that she is used in yet another game. You know, season 1, she is used the prince for Daphne and the Duke. Season 2, she is used by Jack Featherington as a way for him to earn his wealth back. End of season 2, she is used by Colin in the ploy to prove the diamond scheme is a thing. Season 3 now, we have Lord Debling using her. So as much as she is a villain in her own right, she's also been mistreated by a lot of people.
Well, and to be fair, the worst one is Debling, because Daphne is playing the game. Her and Cressida both are playing a game. They both know it. Daphne calls it out by saying he made his choice. They are playing a game. It is the society game. Now, Jack fully intended to marry her.
Yeah.
She would have gotten what she wanted.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have had a happy marriage, but she would have gotten what she wanted. And
I think she would have gotten married. I think her and Jack were actually well suited.
Well, I don't think there was as much money laid on her because of the way that Lord Cowper is. I think he would have withheld the dowry if he found out there was no money on the Featherington side.
Not if it's gonna, because remember, Jack would then become potentially he'd be the father to the heir.
Their son.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, eventually they'd have money, but they might not, Lord Cowper would be.
He's old. He's gonna die off soon anyway.
Yeah, but he's completely a bag of you-know-whats.
Well, you know what? We'll save this discussion for okay. We'll do a Cressida-centric episode.
Colin taking the necklace was not necessarily using her, and she acknowledged that she was using him because she wants people to talk. She wants to be the gossip.
You know what?
So she was using him just as much as he was using her. But Debling was toying with her. He had no intentions for her at all. It wasn't like one of them could win. He wanted Penelope.
Would you like to do a side note? Would you like to do a specific focus of a character in between? We'll do themes. So as we've said, we're going to split up, kind of like what Netflix said, we're going to split up episodes 1 to 4 to 5 to 8. And in between, we're going to do themage. But why don't we also do a character analysis episode? So we are going to hopefully very soon be starting a Patreon where we will do character analysis and more of a deep dive on individual characters and duos and all that kind of thing. But I think we'll put the occasional one on our regular page as well. So what I'm thinking is I think that we should put on our Ladies Bridgerton Facebook page for anyone who is not a member of that. You might want to jump over and join our page, because I'm thinking we should put up a poll of who people would like for their individual character analysis episode. It could be Portia, Violet, Penelope, Eloise, Hyacinth. We will leave it up to the listeners who they would like as their bonus.
Me proving Lord Debling is a covert narcissist.
If you want a 2-hour episode of Patty and I going head to head with it's probably the subject that we have the most conflicting ideas
and it
of.
could be called Nice or Narc.
Yeah.
I get the people that say he's nice, but there's so many red flags that to me
you can be nice and still be a bit of a dickhead at the same time. Just putting it out there.
He openly allows someone to mock someone and he gives them an out and forgives them in the moment. That is
no. Patty, back to the point. So we're going to put up on our Facebook page when this episode airs, which will be in 3 weeks' time. It'll be the 24th for me, so 23rd for probably the rest of the world. So we will put up a poll and people can make a choice. We'll just go with majority rules of who they would like for it's not going to be a bonus episode technically, because we're doing it in between our season part 1, part 2.
First half, second half, yeah.
So it will be a in-depth analysis. So go onto the Ladies Bridgerton Facebook page, put in your requests. We'll probably leave the poll open so you can add anyone that you want. Please don't choose someone like Ray, because we can't do a 2-hour episode. I mean, we probably could actually. Choose who you want. We'll run with it. We'll make it work. Okay, let's get back to Colin. Miss Kenworthy is talking to Colin and he's seeing right through her as he answers. He's looking at Penelope and he answers, "I believe that courage is within us all, as long as we are honest with ourselves and about our feelings." He then turns to talk in Pen's direction directly to her, as if to say, it is possible to do anything. He is talking to Penelope directly in this moment. He is trying to say, please, Penelope, please be honest with your feelings. Pick me. Choose me.
He's being a pick me bitch.
No, it's a scene from Grey's Anatomy. Pick me, choose me. You know what? I actually hate the whole pick me bitch, because I feel like it's another thing that's weaponized against women.
Yes,
about wanting to be chosen. And I don't. Yes. I don't vibe with that.
And personally, I don't believe. I believe love is a choice. I believe you wake up every day and you make the choice every day to love your person. So yes, I want to be chosen. Someday a man will choose me and he will choose me every day, just as I choose him every day. Mm-hmm. So if that makes me a pick me bee, then that makes me a pick me bee.
And then Steven's like, Pikachu, I choose you. I am his Pikachu for reference. Cute, but a little bit spicy.
Same. I'm spicy. Neurospicy.
I'm all kinds of spice. I am the garlic powder. So
you're not smoky. You don't want to be cumin.
I am not smoky. I actually really despise smoky flavors. Okay. So very much not cumin.
So since we're talking about this, I sent these to you from Cap That. One is where Penelope's looking at Colin, and one is where he's looking at her. And when Penelope's looking at Colin, people aren't blurred out because we see their backs, but he is framed by human beings. So he is definitely her center. Yeah. She's looking to him, I think, for guidance. And this is a moment of her yearning for him. Like, she's doing a choose me too, but because he says what he says and it comes off sounding like one of his lessons, when you look at the picture or at the frame of him looking at her. We have people's faces, but even Miss Malhotra, that's Miss Malhotra, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Kenworthy, they're blurred out. She is in completely sharp focus. All of the light in the scene is on her. Everyone else is kind of in shadow. It's like a light is coming down from heaven
Wait,
onto
no,
her.
that's Miss Hardigan on the right, and then
Is it Hardigan
Miss,
still?
yeah,
Okay.
it's Hardigan,
But they're
and then
blurred. It's blurred out, so it's hard for me to tell there for a second.
Miss Malhotra is our Indian queen, so she's a fair bit darker in skin
Yeah.
tone. But that's Miss Hardigan's necklace. That's why I recognize it.
Okay. Yeah, she's blurred out, so it was hard
Yeah,
for me
yeah,
to tell there for a second.
yeah.
But Pen is completely in focus. There's a light. It's almost like the light's coming
This is
from her,
Patty's.
but
I don't
it's
see
like
color.
it's like I don't see anything.
Well,
I first of all,
a white queen versus an Indian queen, very different.
it's blurred and she's in shadow. Give me the benefit of the doubt. Plus, I just rescheduled an eye appointment that I desperately need. Okay. So I'm not even gonna deny the fact that I'm kind of blind, but everybody else is blurred. Yeah, everybody else is blurred. She's in complete focus. There is a light shining on her, but it almost looks like the light is coming from her. I think these two framings are so well done that you understand that even though they are apart from each other in the room, they are completely communicating with each other. But the wires get crossed a little bit because he's saying pick me, just like she's saying pick me. Both of their body language is pick me, but because he has done all these lessons with her and what he says kind of sounds like a lesson, she assumes he's being her coach. She doesn't assume he's saying pick me, right? And that's why she turns and she walks to Debling, and he in that moment is like, she's made her choice.
Yeah.
I just like that framing for me was so beautifully done.
But
it conveyed so much.
I think they are very much at each other's center of gravitational. They are the black hole. Everything gravitates around them. But unfortunately, as is the rom-com kind of, what do you call it? You've got the crescendo. In a movie, you've got your start, your peak, there is misunderstanding. And Penelope very much misunderstands his declaration because she's so deep in denial about his ability to ever have feelings for her that she completely misunderstands that he is basically declaring his love and requesting that declaration back. And in the moment, instead, she misunderstands his declaration and thinks that he is encouraging her to find the courage to go after Debling despite Cressida's kind of input. And upon seeing Penelope approaching Debling, Colin excuses himself from his fans because he's like, I can't watch this. I can't deal with you women and watch the love of my life go after someone else. So Penelope approaches Debling, who begins to brush her off to return to Cressida. And he's quite snide about it as well. Like, Cressida won, you had your chance, your legs were too short, clearly you are not marriageable material if you cannot run faster, little T-Rex. And he's like, I'm bringing a lemonade.
Darvo there.
Yeah, I'm bringing a lemonade.
Evaluating.
To Cressida, and very much begins to cut her off and dismiss her when Penelope decides, okay, this is my chance. It's now or never.
He's learned she's a people pleaser, and if he acts like he doesn't have her like she doesn't have his approval, she tries harder. So that he's testing his hypothesis here because he's assigned. Yeah.
So this is the moment where Penelope realizes either she can go all in and be her authentic self, because obviously the games are not working for her. And she basically explains to Debling that she hasn't been honest with him. She does not care for grass. She does not care for nature. She does not care to be outside. She enjoys reading about nature. She enjoys watching it from the comfort of her window. But this was a beautiful moment where she kind of sets aside Colin's lessons, as she should have, because they were
his
useless.
Lessons weren't lessons. His lessons were ways of courting her without openly courting her.
But this is the first time that we see Penelope kind of be herself with anyone except for the Bridgertons. And we see why the Bridgertons love her so much, because she's never even herself with her own family. She's very much guarded. Everything that she does is calculated around them. This is the first time we ever see Penelope be herself with anyone aside from the Bridgertons. And of course, he shows immediate interest because he's like, wow, this is a really honest, this is a beautiful person. And I think he's genuinely impressed with her in this moment. And I know that you have feelings about it, but I want to get out my point because I think he genuinely held interest in her, not just as someone to run his estate, but this was the moment where he realizes, hey, this is a real person. She's not fake like everyone else in the ton. She's showing me her true side, and this is a side that I value. Whether he values all parts of it, I think he knows that even when he is in not out on his adventures, that he would lead an easy life, being able to converse with her intellectually, being able to have real conversations with her, that she's an interesting person who has more interesting things to say than I like grass. And this is the moment where he dismisses Cressida. He goes, he gives
Cressida's lemonade to Penelope, yes.
Why is he not drinking the lemonade? She was supposed to be drinking the lemonade. I don't know what it is about Bridgerton and lemonade this season, but lemonade's a thing.
Gentlemen bringing you a refreshment is a sign that they want to provide for you.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was going to bring Cressida a refreshment, and the fact that he hands that to Penelope, he's telling he's telling Cressida from across the room that his intentions have changed. But it's all a context clue communication, because in society you never say anything out loud. Everything are these little rules of etiquette. And personally, this is the most genuine I think we ever see Debling in that moment. I struggle with him saying how many yous are there exactly, because I see that that's like negging to me.
I thought it was a cheeky
negative it's cheeky, but it has a negative connotation. Like someday when they're having a conflict and an argument, because we never see them truly have a conflict or an argument until after Colin interrupts, and in that moment he has to have sole control, and he does nothing but belittle her until he walks out. So in a conflict, that cute little cheeky quip becomes him calling her Sybil. If they knew what Sybil was back then, like, oh, you have multiple personalities, you are never the same person 2 days in a row, you know what I mean? Like I just, something that sounds cute in the beginning ends up, he just gives me that vibe, because he has been playing her and Cressida against each other. He very much is just putting them in a pot, stirring them up. And yes, we see the most genuine him in the moment. Like, I could actually have a conversation with this person. She wanted me to believe she liked nature, but I like that she doesn't, and I like that she was honest, because I need someone who's going to be honest with me, because my family isn't.
I feel like this is the first time that we see Lord Debling as a real contender for Penelope's heart, because it is in this moment that we see, but before we know the rest of it, Patty, before we know the rest of it, this is the first time that we see, Penelope is being honest with him. She's being her true, authentic self with him right now. And he shows appreciation for that. So as we are watching as viewers, not knowing the ending, this is the first moment where we think, okay, he's a real contender. It is not Lord Remington. It is not Lord Basilio. It's not a passing interest. It's not a casual conversation. They are about to court, or they are courting, or whatever. But
I wouldn't say for Penelope's heart. Her hand, yes. Penelope wants to get married. And this is the first time we realize Debling is a real contender.
Penelope wanted to be married for love. Would she ever love him as much as she loves Colin? That is debatable. Love can grow. It comes in different forms. I cannot answer that definitively. But what I'm saying is she was looking for love. She couldn't have the love that she had with Colin, that she wanted to have with Colin. So she was looking for it elsewhere. So this is the first time that we see her actually expressing herself from the heart.
Okay. I see it differently. Yes, she wanted to marry for love to Colin, because every time she spent the whole week, he said, looking for him, looking for someone. And when he came and he proposed, and she's talking through all the pros, and she's very nervous about admitting that she wants more. And in that moment, she acknowledges that she knows she's not going to have love with Debling. And yes, she still asks him about it at the ball, but that's that last visage of hope, because Colin's not at the ball. This is the last dance. She's running out of time. She's still looking off, hoping he shows up at the edge of the dance floor. She's wanting to be rescued by him for someone who wants and needs to be able to stand in her own light and do things herself, she spends from the moment she says we need to distance ourselves from each other, I believe she is hoping that Colin will miss her, that Colin will realize his feelings and he'll come to her, just as he's hoping she'll come to him.
Well,
and so for her, love is Colin, security is Debling. Just like Portia says, security is more important than love.
Well, we can see in future episodes that she's clearly intending, or she's clearly hoping that in their marriage will eventually come love, though. That it's not just going to be.
I agree in episode 4 because
she's trying to determine whether she can settle for just intellectual comfort with each other, or whether she will hold out for love.
Right. She equates Colin with love, but Colin can't. I think in the moment where he can't say his feelings and Debling comes in and Colin blocks that, she's like, if he was going to do it, this would have been it. Right. So all of episode 4, she is trying to, like all women do, I'm going to take this man that is here. I'm going to take this right now, man, this one that I am able to achieve, and I'm going to try and mold him into what I want.
That was a very sweeping statement there, that all women do.
Yes. Okay. I mean, most women, there is a man in their life, in their history, that they got with, that they saw potential and not the reality.
The very scientific papers, you never write in absolutes because there is no such thing as a fact. It is a fact when you write it, but it will not necessarily be a fact forever. So we always write with wriggle room for change.
No. Well, I absolutely hope that there are women that come after us that learn from our mistakes and learn that
let us be your
man
ancestors.
is a man. Yeah, a man is a man is a man. And you do not enter a relationship if you are thinking, if only he were this, if only he did that. Because if you go in thinking any kind of if only, you're getting your heart broke, chick.
Well, let's talk about that heartbreak. So this is when Colin is watching over Lord Debling and Penelope when his mother approaches him looking for Francesca. And I love this moment between them. I think it's a really beautiful mother-son moment because she's been so fixated on Francesca that she's completely bypassed that her other children have things going on in their own lives that she hasn't noticed. And this is the episode where she finally realizes, oh, there are things going on that I've been too fixated elsewhere to notice, which is not like her.
Yes, well, she's had blinders on for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Colin feigns an interest in what Violet wishes for a match for Francesca, but very much the undertone is what he wants for himself, what the love that she wants for her children. And in the beginning of the conversation, Violet thinks that she is genuinely discussing Francesca here, but midway through she kind of realizes that Colin is looking over Penelope and Lord Debling as she is speaking to him. Like he's taking in the words and he's looking and he's watching and he's ruminating in those thoughts. And that is when Violet finally realizes, oh, my son is in love with Penelope. And I think that Violet knows that Colin is like the most similar to Edmund out of all of her children. He's sensitive, he's loving, he wears his heart on his sleeve, he tries to put everyone else first.
Yeah, I think he's very much like her father.
Yeah.
I think that's why we got Queen Charlotte before season 3, because there's so many similarities between Lord Ledger and Colin, like the fancifulness, the imaginative.
I actually see more of Benedict in Lord Ledger, a little bit more Benedict, like a cross between Benedict and
yeah, they're both I think Benedict and Colin are so much like
I think it's why they're setting up a little bit of relationship between Lady Danbury and Benedict in this season.
I think it's her favorite because he reminds her of her Lord Ledger.
Well, she very much treats them like her grandchildren because they kind of...
I also think that she is interested in the whole Colin Penelope thing for the same reason. I think that Colin's been very charmed and she sees Penelope as being a lot like her.
Yeah.
And
because we don't see Lady Danbury involving herself in anyone else. Like I know that Violet says, she molds society. Who is her current fixation? That is my daughter. But in the books, it's not just the Bridgertons / Penelope that she molds into that either, because she also has a hand in one of the Smythe Smiths as well.
Right. But I do think that like Benedict reminds her the most of Lord Ledger because I think I mean his gentleness and his openness that he just sees everybody for who they are. I think that's very much Lord Ledger, but Lord Ledger's fancifulness, the walks he took with Danbury where he was like, what do you see? What is not there? And they have all those talks about imagining things that are there or not there. That's very much Colin. Like he helps her through her stuff by using her imagination and playing pretend as adults. Let's play pretend and imagine it with me, Agatha. So there's a touch of Lord Ledger in the both of them, and what I find truly interesting here, as he's asking her what she is seeking out for Francesca, I almost remember his conversation with Cressida later and how single-minded he is about family's love is enduring, family wants what's best for you kind of thing. So I think he's asking Violet what Violet wants for Francesca because her answer is what he is going to believe Portia wants for Penelope. So he's not going to walk up and ask Portia, but he's going to ask his mother because he's like, any mother would want the same thing for a daughter that she loves. So he's asking that question, and Violet thinks he's asking for himself. I mean, he kind of is. Not what Violet thinks he's asking what she wants for him. He's asking her because he thinks that is what Portia's going to want for Penelope, and he wants to hear friendship and love. He wants to hear those things. He doesn't want to hear security, title, all the stuff he's heard come out of Portia's mouth. He wants to pretend that something is there that is not there. He knows what Portia wants for her kids, and he knows he's not it.
At this point, he is pretty unaware of Portia's treatment of Penelope as a daughter. He knows of Portia's behavior in public, but he does not know the full extent of her treatment. So Colin basically asks, so how did you and Dad eventually get together? And Violet,
did you know it was reciprocated? I love that.
Yeah. Like, how did you know it was reciprocated? And she says he built the courage to ask. Yeah. That is very
you're
much
the dude.
Violet. Yeah, that is very much Violet.
You're the dude. You have to ask. Penelope's never going to tell you anything because she's not allowed.
No.
The man has to ask.
And she's quite not sensitive. She is sensitive, but I mean, she's not confident. She's not someone she has shown confidence in this season, but she's not confident enough to ever be that brazen with Colin.
Well, and that's the thing, coming from the family she did and how vulgar they are, and coming from a place of her lack of confidence, she knows societal etiquette. And that's how Whistledown was born, because she knows so much of what society expects and what the rules are of society that she can call out the little faux pas everybody does. And she creates the gossip because she knows when people are messing with the rules. Yeah. And that's why the Bridgertons are in there all the time, because she's kind of being cheeky, because she knows them so well and she loves them so much that she's breaking the rules a little bit, Anthony. You know what I mean? And if you look at the season where she talked up Daphne was like a big sister to her.
Until she started talking up Marina, and then the Bridgerton took it as an insult.
Yes, she started talking up Marina because she had a little hyper focus in Marina there for a little bit, because Marina became her friend in her home, like a collaborator, a confidant. She finally had a sister who was on her same level.
She had a safe space in that house.
Right. So she started talking up Marina, and then she had to talk about Marina because she wanted to write about Colin.
Yeah.
And she needed to get those feelings out. So then she kind of ditched Daphne in a way, and it was taken as an insult when all it really was a little girl, a young girl who was writing out her fixations and stuff like that. And really a brand new writer. Like, she was just testing the waters to see what she could get away with, kind of.
Well, and let's talk about Lady Whistledown then, because in the next scene, we've got Colin approaching Penelope as Lady Whistledown reads over. First, Colin approaches Penelope, and Penelope remarks to Colin, finally free from your admirers. Colin literally cannot do anything but stare at her lips, transfixed by the memory of kissing her. Penelope confuses this as him being unwell, or at least shades him by saying, "Are you unwell?"
Well, she's covering, I think, because she knows he's very serious. And
Oh, did I lose?
I think in that moment, she is
Ah,
seeing
there we
a
go.
side of Colin that she's never seen. And she's concerned. She's genuinely concerned, but she also knows, like, this is like in season 1 when Violet says, "This is the most solemn and serious I've ever seen you." This is the first time Penelope is seeing Colin fixating on anyone, and it's her, and it's weird,
Yeah.
but he's serious and he's solemn, and that's just not what Colin is. And she's like, what's going on? Like, she senses the shift. There's a shift and she senses it.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
like,
because we've got the Lady Whistledown article that really, really feeds into the scene as well. I was supposed to mention it first, but I accidentally hit my keyboard and didn't realize it deleted a portion of my notes. So I'm like, hey, I was like, where's the bit that I needed? So I just clicked back, and they came back.
back.
Back. Back it up. Because I was like, you could probably see my brain being like, where's the part that I'm meant to be reading? I know I know what it is, but it's not here.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized.
You need to back that ass up and get those notes.
So, the Lady Whistledown reads before Colin and Penelope start talking. And it says, this author believes that all of man's greatest inventions are nothing more than a distraction from what is most natural to us. Our instinct, the innate animal impulse that is inside even the most sophisticated of us. For when all is said and done, our nature will always win out. And it's funny because this is one of those times where I think we've talked about it in the past where there's Penelope's feelings and then there's Lady Whistledown as her own conscious mind that is not Penelope, if that makes any sense at all. This is one of the times where I think this is Lady Whistledown as an impartial reading over the scenario of what's happening rather than reading a Lady Whistledown article. This is one of those times where it is the hive mind of
Whistledown.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're using Whistledown as a narrator.
Yeah.
But I also look at it like, because Penelope, as somebody who was as traumatized as she was throughout her whole childhood, she has feelings, but she's an intellectualizer. She intellectualizes her feelings, and that's why Whistledown becomes kind of like her journal. And we see that more in season 3, where she's writing out actual like feelings and she's feeling herself out and figuring out who she is. And I think this is one of those times where she's intellectualizing. She's writing about nature because she's thinking about Debling, but she's writing it in a way that this moment, I think Whistledown is kind of talking about. Yes, it's a double entendre talking about Penelope, where she is fighting wanting nature, which is Debling. Debling is nature in these things. Instinct in this case is Colin, because animal impulse
is to follow your instincts, and her instincts are yelling to her, Colin. Animal instincts is watching a balloon head towards you that could possibly kill you. It wasn't going to, but could possibly kill you, but instead having the animal instinct of sexual desire, completely wiping out your better sense.
Right. And so Debling is nature and Colin as a decision, because this is the decision of nature versus instinct, right? Yeah. And then that plays into what I think is the call out of Colin on the dance floor, that Whistledown. So in this case, this is Penelope's internal mind. This is how we know she is going back and forth. Debling, Colin, Debling, Colin, Debling, Colin. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then here comes Colin. And I think this Whistledown is kind of your way of knowing when she sees Colin be like this, she knows. I think in that moment, she believes there's a possibility because she's been hoping for it. She has been wanting Colin to save her from a loveless marriage. And she thinks this is the moment. And because Colin tries.
The look that he is giving her is very reminiscent of the look that he gives her as he is stepping towards her when she first asks her. He's focused on the lips. He is breathing in the moment. He's breathing in her essence. He's transfixed by her beauty. He's transfixed by the memory of kissing her. And
he says what every girl wants to hear is, there's a question I've been meaning to ask you.
Needing to ask.
Yeah. So it's very, most girls on, at a ball.
And as
here's a man says that.
He's leaning closer to her, very properly close at this point. Like he could reach out and just kiss her.
Well, and yeah, because every other time he's in her personal space, he's behind her. He hovers over her like an umbrella from behind. And this is the first time it's happening from the front. And I don't think she's never fully understood it. I know, keep laughing. She's never fully understood the impact of him in that moment, like what he is really needing and wanting in those moments where he's you're on mute, Chicky Poo, where he's taking up her personal space, but now he's doing it missionary.
So what you're telling me is what you're telling me here. I didn't realize that I was muted to eat my snacks, and I'm here cackling in the background at
I know. I'm watching you.
Euphemism. Oh, so what you're telling me is Penelope prefers it from behind.
No, Penelope is oblivious when he's behind her. She needs him in the front so she can see the face.
I resonate.
Well, when you have a not so talker, when they're not communicating with you, you need facial expressions.
You're absolutely kidding. Like yanking on from behind. The first time taking her from the front. Stop it, Patty. You know what my mind is like. You're murdering me over here.
I'm getting you back. I'm getting you back for the whole backdoor thing. But the thing is, it is instinct. It is very much sexual tension, so it fits. But Penelope doesn't realize just how serious he is until that moment because she can see the look on his face.
This is the part. Okay, I found my notes. I talked about this in one of the last 2 episodes. This is the music that is playing. That is very... So it's not a song. It's not a song, but it's a musical instrumental song, not a sing-song song. This is a song that is actually very reminiscent of a dance between Simon and Daphne in season 1. It's a very, very...
I actually saw a TikTok where somebody did a Shazam or whatever, and it's the same song.
Oh, it is the same song. Okay, I was like...
I'm pretty sure I saw a TikTok where they found the song, and it is the same song that plays. Yeah,
cool. Because
it's not a pop cover. It's just an instrumental. It's an instrumental. Yeah.
Okay. So, because I was like, I'm sure I'm not going crazy here. I'm sure this is the same song, but it was odd that they had that dance between Simon and Daphne to it playing now. Because I'm pretty sure it was the first dance between. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure it's the first dance between Simon and Daphne, under the festoon lights when they're pretending to court, which is, I wonder if they made that a mirror scene to now, because not that Penelope is pretending to court Debling, but it sort of is. It's like, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, because she is actively pursuing Debling in the hopes that Colin will get jealous.
It would have made more sense if they played the song that she was dancing with Lord Friedrich, and then the same song when Penelope's dancing with Lord Debling. That would make more sense if they did it that way.
But when Penelope realizes that their romance was fake, because Whistledown's very observant, she's using that playbook. And I think that music kind of harkens to that. It's a little cheeky nod that this is her moment. She thinks this is her moment. She thinks her plan worked. She followed Daphne's playbook. The chick who was perfect at society game. I think she's been doing that to try and get Colin jealous, and she thought it worked in this moment when he came up. I think that's why it's the same music, because when she first observed Simon and Daphne coming together, that's the song that was playing, and she was very prominently right there. They walk right past her. So, and there's so many mirror moments in this season of where you can see that if Penelope did not look up to her own sisters, and she was friends with Eloise, she would look up to Daphne for sure as the eldest sister, as the older sister, to kind of, I'm going to model myself around her because she's doing it right. I mean, look at the way she wrote about Daphne coming back out for the prince to make the Duke jealous. And she absolutely called it out in the Lady Whistledown in that scene. She saw what Daphne was doing. So I think she pulled from Daphne's playbook, and this is the moment she thinks, she's right, but Colin can't tell her. She thinks it's worked. So that's why we have that reminiscent music. Yeah. And I think in that moment, she's like, oh my God, really, 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 really? Well, like that office thing of it's now. But then Colin.
I think in that moment where he's like looking at her so intently, I think there was no way for her to to rationalize or deny it in that moment. At least she might be able to go home and rationalize the way he was looking at her and the thing that he was needing to ask. But in that moment, your animal instincts take over, and your body knows when someone is looking at you that way, that closely, that, you know, he could just reach out and grab her. I think
I almost think there was a fear too. I almost think she was slightly scared because the Featheringtons are always creating a spectacle.
Yeah.
I think she was worried in that moment that Colin was going to kiss her in front of everybody. Not that she would deny it by any means, but big displays of emotion, affection, and you could not kiss in public in front of anyone unless it was someone you had not seen in a long time. So let's say like Marcus, okay? Let's say that Marcus and Violet had known each other for a long time and he's been gone for a long time. He could have having like kind of being reintroduced to her, or, you know, because there's always introductions, whether you know people or not. So being reintroduced to her, they acknowledge it's been a long time and they are dear friends and the public knows it. He could lean in and kiss her, not necessarily on the lips because that's a romantic thing, but
like
he could give her a kiss on the cheek or the hand. But you don't do that in public unless it's a really close friend that you haven't seen for a long time. Which actually now tells me, like, as much as Penelope refrained from hugging Colin in season 2 when he came home, she could have. Nobody would have thought anything of it because they are long-standing friends. The family would have never thought anything of it, and they could have hugged each other. And they both, I mean, she refrained because of the kids, but, you know,
I think that
protecting
she
herself.
didn't because she's always afraid to be too close to him in case he realized how much she thought that.
Yeah, she was hiding her feelings.
Her love for him was so strong that she was afraid that it would show.
Yeah, she was afraid to show her.
Yeah, so in this moment,
and he couldn't hide his. I don't understand how she did not see them. And I think in this moment, she's like, "Oh,
self-esteem.
My goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness," and then it just falls apart and Debling ruins it all. So
self-esteem.
This is my biggest nightmare, by the way. I have dreams all the time that I'm in a romantic situation with someone and it gets interrupted. And I'm not just talking about sexual trysts or anything. I'm talking about like having big conversations, having conversations about feelings, having just, you know, cuddle time just gets interrupted all the time. Like people come in and want to change what's on the TV, or people just keep coming in and out of the room. Like these are literally my nightmares. And I watched a whole season of these two.
Welcome to every married couple with children.
I mean, I was married and I fostered kids. So yeah, I understood they came and picked up the kids for their visit with their caseworker. They're going to be gone an hour. Okay. I understood the take the time when you have the time. But like watching a whole season of these two people who both just want to be with each other and they are constantly getting interrupted. They are but people that are just breaking society rules, like the queen interrupting their wedding breakfast. Rude, right? Like
you're gonna hear me raging on that episode. So
I know.
Angry.
Yeah. So
angry. Like okay, so need to
Debling, Colin blocks, and now we're going to talk Regency etiquette.
Well, yeah, so Debling approaches and basically reminds Penelope of the dance that she had promised to him. He can see very clearly, clear as day, that he is interrupting a moment. And, you know, he later on says at the Erosaki ball, we'll just call it that, that he thought that there was some kind of rift going on between Penelope and Colin. What kind of rift are you thinking, sir? Because the level of friendship that they had wasn't proper regardless. I think that was absolutely an excuse. I think he knew that there was something going on between them, but something wasn't communicating properly between them. And I think he very much knew that Colin was his competition. Like,
yes,
the way that Debling acts in this moment is very BDE. I'm bigger than you. I'm richer than you. I am higher in society than you. I have more to offer. Step aside, little boy.
He used his status in the moment and societal etiquette to stop their conversation. He should have never interrupted it.
Yeah.
Because first of all, the biggest social faux pas there is anyone, I don't care what your status is, interrupting a conversation in progress. That is rude. Yeah. That is why when Penelope walked up and saw that Debling was talking to Cressida and Eloise, she didn't turn and try and leave because it was Cressida and Eloise, although that was her version of hell in that moment. She could not interrupt because he was already engaged in conversation. That's rude.
Yes. And we can even see this play out with Lady Tilly and Benedict and the Eros and
The elder
Psyche
couple.
dance scene where the
Yeah.
elder couple could see that Benedict had an interest in talking to Lady Tilly, so they invited her in. Benedict
Yes.
couldn't do that, but they could invite her in.
Right. And that shows
And
us
they
how
introduced her.
introductions that
Yes.
shows us how introduction works, because the gentleman got introduced to the lady, and he was a lord. Benedict is a second son, so
Yes.
he did the introductions.
Yeah.
Because everything is about your status. So when I say, first of all, that Debling should have never interrupted the conversation, that is the first criminal act. The second is the fact that he does not acknowledge Colin. He doesn't have to, because he is the superior status. So he basically cuts off Penelope, because Penelope, as a woman, cannot introduce Colin to Lord Debling, because Colin is of lower status than Lord Debling. And she can only introduce Lord Debling to Colin if he acknowledges, like, in the drawing room when Samadani shows up and Sir John is there. Okay, Marquis and Earl. Samadani goes, I don't believe we've been introduced. That allows them to introduce Sir John to him, because Sir John, as an Earl, cannot introduce himself. Yeah. So Samadani opened the door for that. And he knew he had to. He had to acknowledge it and say something. Debling says nothing. So he, in effect, silences Colin. Colin, from the moment he walks up and interrupts, is not allowed to speak at all. And Penelope kind of breaks the rules a little bit, because she pauses for him to speak, even though she's supposed to walk away to dance. But Penelope can't introduce unless Debling opens the door, and he never does. So he purposely, knowing what he is seeing, comes in and stops it. Yeah. Because he has made his choice. He has made his decision, and now he's competing.
Yes, and very much like Penelope acknowledges the moment happening between the two men as well. And she looks back at Colin, like searching his eyes, imploring him, please speak now before it's too late.
And she knows he can't. And that's why she looks so
basically
torn.
Well, I think he can't, but Penelope knows that
she's hoping he breaks the rules, because he's Chaos Colin.
Penelope knows that Colin will break the rules when it is important to him. But she basically is unable to wait for him any longer. And that is a metaphor for their entire love. She's like, I can't just keep putting my life on hold for you. I can't keep waiting for you. I can't keep waiting for you to declare yourself or make me an honest woman. She looks down, hurt, and then she takes Debling's hand.
Yep.
And like Colin is completely crushed, but he caused this moment.
Debling caused this moment.
Well, I mean, it was a joint effort, Patty. Like he very much could have broken rules, and he would have.
Yes, but this is
people expect you to. When it comes to the affairs of the heart, they know that affairs of the heart sometimes dictates more rules than societal rules.
Well, and this is where we see what his true intentions are. He absolutely loves her. How do we know? Because he doesn't believe he's the better choice. Debling has status. Debling has wealth. Debling has estates. He has 24 curricles. We learn this later. Colin has asked around about him. We've seen him ask the Lord Squad, but do you think he stopped there? He's asked around. He knows that on paper, Debling is the better choice. And he wants Penelope to make the best choice for her. And he believes he's not it. Well, all he can give her is love. And it's so because he loves her, he's not talking and he's following the rules, but he's also in that moment because he doesn't know how she feels. He doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of someone else, because we saw that with the Lord Squad in season 2. He wanted to save face. If he would have said right then, I want to court you, I want to marry you, will you, do you have feelings for me, whatever his question was, and she looked at him and went, what?
I don't think he would have ever questioned any of that. I think he wanted to ask her to marry him.
Right, but I'm saying, like, we technically don't know what he was going to ask. I think he was going to ask for marriage too. I think he was marriage minded. I think he was going to propose the night of the kiss.
At that point,
he wanted to be alone.
He was already tortured for weeks by thoughts of her at this point. Weeks and weeks of torture, of watching her from the shadows.
The fake lessons, they were not real lessons. I think he was testing waters, seeing if he could figure out what her feelings were to him before he declared himself. I think the night of the full moon ball, he had fully intended on proposing because he got them to have alone time. He bribed Ray. It was important enough for him to bribe her. Yeah. He broke the rules but it was a private moment. This is in front of the competition.
Like,
this is, and if you look off to the back, the Lord Squad is standing back there, just all interested.
And if there's any of the naysayers who would say, oh no, he wasn't going to propose. Okay, what conversation do you think that he was going to be having in public in front of everyone else? He's not going to say, do you have feelings for me, in the middle of a ball. That is something that you go and you call upon them and you have those conversations. You do not do it in public. He was not going to ask her about her feelings. He wasn't going to ask her, hey, what happened to Marina's puppy? Did you kill it? Like, he's not going to ask her some inane question. He was going to ask her to marry him.
To dance. No, he was going to ask her to marry him on the dance floor, but we don't know that she's dancing with Debling till Debling comes up. He was going to ask her to dance, but why was it so hard for it to come out of his mouth? Because when he actually asked her, the only time he's ever asked her was at the end of season 1, and she turned him down. And every other time he has danced with her, he has told her, I'm dancing with you.
I think he was too focused. I don't think he was even thinking about dancing and then proposing on the dance floor. I think he was so single-minded in what he wanted
was in the moment.
He needed to get it out before he chickened out. I don't think he would have asked her to dance, because then you've got to go and you got to line up, you got to stand, you got to dance.
Yeah, but he struggles, and that's why that dance was so hard on him too. Not just seeing her dance with someone else, but knowing that could have been him. I think that he was, anytime Colin has openly asked Penelope anything, requested of her anything socially, she's denied him. She's turned him down. When he's come in and just taken, she's given. But when he is asked, she's denied, up until the carriage. At the carriage point, when he says, will you let me in? And she does. I think that's the start of, hey, things are starting to go in my favor.
Well, and Lady Whistledown kind of mocks him in this, not mocks, but
she calls him out.
The Lady Whistledown reads, it seems Lord Debling's instincts have led this man of nature to the most surprising pick of the season in Miss Penelope Featherington. As in, at least someone is listening to their instincts and acting upon them. He's being a man. He's doing as he's supposed to. He found his instincts. He followed his instinct. He followed through with the instincts. He made his choice. He didn't fluff about it. But remember, that's kind of how
instinct. I think instinct is used here because in the previous one, instinct was her instinct towards Colin. And she's acknowledging that Debling is the winner because Debling chose her openly. Yeah. Colin couldn't do it. And I think she believed that he couldn't do it because it was in public. He can do everything he wants in private.
Yeah.
Get her alone. But in public, he could not openly love her in public. And I think that's what it became in that moment. Debling was proud to take her to the dance floor. Everything Colin's ever done up to this point has been alone, in private, in the dark, like a secret. We need to go somewhere more private. I bribed her so we could be alone. She's starting to see the difference. And I think that plays into Colin loving her as loudly as he did from the moment they were on the same page.
Penelope didn't want to be anyone's dirty little secret in the closet with Lord Fife. She deserved better than that treatment.
Yep. And that's what she's calling out. Like, he won because he publicly acknowledged Penelope. Well, you know what I mean? Like, and then she's saying, you screwed up, dude.
Happier Than Ever playing. And those who have listened to our music episode know exactly how we feel about the song. We get what they were
the
trying.
Dance, and the dance is beautiful. And
it sounds beautiful. They've done a beautiful rendition.
Don't Google the lyrics.
They're horrendous. It basically insinuates that Penelope and Colin are in this toxic relationship, and now that Penelope is moving on with Debling, she's happy, because that's not the case at all. And while the song is playing, you know what? This is one of those moments where, like, as a mum, you watch a mum watching over a son, and you're just like, I think Violet hurts as much watching her son be hurt as what Colin does. Like, as a parent, you absolutely, like, the empathy that she has for her children is one of the most beautiful things about Violet. And to see her children hurting, like, she pushes her children to do Like she knows them so well that she pushes them beyond the choices that they are making to make the choices that they need to make for their happiness. Like, I mean, with the exception of Francesca, but I do think that she is pushing Francesca in the right ways at the start, but it's when she chooses Lord Kilmartin that sorry, you know what I meant. No, he's Lord Kilmartin. He's
The Earl of Kilmartin.
Yeah. Well, because you're Lord, whatever your estate is, not Lord Sterling, it's Lord Kilmartin.
Yeah. The original titled person, the title gets named after their last name, but the heirs may not have the same last name, but they keep the title.
Yeah. So Lord Featherington will be potentially Thomas Bridgerton, but Lord Featherington.
Or Elliot Bridgerton.
Yes. Well, I just chose Thomas because that was the book. So
that's in the book. But we know that Polin is thrown out in the world. They hope they name the baby Elliot for Eloise. So whatever, he's going to be Sir...
We're going to get the name because they've already cast the little bubs.
Yeah.
Or, so I think
Sir something Bridgerton, but he'll be Lord Featherington.
So we have Colin watching Penelope and Debling dance, and Colin very much in this moment feels like he has lost his chance, that she is lost to him forever. They're not even engaged at this point, but he's already like given up hope. And like, come on, dude, this girl has pined for you for how many years? She's watched you get engaged and she has still fought for you. Do better. Don't return to your ways of revelry. No, sir. Like, Colin's being a little bit of a bitch.
This is the mirror of, if we talked about it before, Colin has to go through every emotional experience of longing and loving without knowing that person loves them back, that Penelope went through in seasons 1 and season 2. So this is his Marina moment. This is where publicly a man is announcing his intentions toward Penelope. And it's just like when Penelope was present at that garden party where Colin announced their engagement. It's the exact mirror moment. And this is, I mean, she just looked like she could vomit right there on the cobblestones. And he looked about the same.
Fought for him. He gave up hope initially. Penelope never gave up hope. She continued to fight for him the entire time. The only time that we see Penelope stop fighting for Colin is after the "I would never dream of courting Penelope Featherington" moment. And she was hurt for a minute, and she deserved to be hurt for a minute. But
his not fighting for her was leading to his demise. He was wasting away. He was dying of a broken heart. I really do think it's possible for some people, and we were watching
it. Is a medically real thing. So the last Lady Whistledown, this is where the episode finishes off, and it's Lady Whistledown says, "Suffice it to say, this author is captivated, for in the battle between man and nature, it is quite clear that the battle is in fact between man and himself." This is very much alluding to the fact that Colin is struggling to let his feelings be known, and that he is the core of his own strife and pain throughout his inability to act upon those feelings. He's so afraid of the consequences of Penelope shutting him down that he is willing to suffer the consequences of losing her in its entirety.
Altogether.
Because I believe that for a second that Lord Debling goes away for 3 years and he returns. Do you honestly think that Lord Debling would be okay with Penelope maintaining the relationship that she does with Colin in the manner that she does currently?
No. And that's why I think that the whole season 1, the way it went, was not an intentional. He was not marrying Marina for love. He never once said he loved her. He said, we are of the same mind. Yeah. He said, this will show how in love I am, or how you will see how in love I say I am. He never says I love her.
And that was only to Anthony. He never actually says it to Marina. I love you.
And Daphne,
she says I love you as a manipulation, but he never actually repeats it to her.
No, he says at the end of that scene, if you would have just come and told me your predicament, I would have married you without a second thought. That is how much in love I believe myself to be. Still not. That's how much I love you, because he's in love with someone else. And I believe he's trying to, now that Penelope's on the marriage mark, he is concerned that she will be with someone else because she was off limits. He did not believe they would be together, and he could not lose her. He believed he was going to lose her. I believe when he found out, hey, Marina's kind of pretty, I noticed her. Who is that? Finds out she's related. I think his whole courtship, because he never talked to Marina until all the other suitors were gone.
And it's
he talked to Penelope.
It's kind of the Dawson's Creek of it all. The new girl shows up. The new girl is pretty. Oh, look, something shiny and you. Let's play with that for a little while, completely disregarding the fact that you have the girl of your dreams right next door. And then the
young.
And then the second that Joey starts to move on with the guy who turns out to be gay.
Oh, yeah.
The guy that turns out
he was on Charm too.
Yeah, but she loses her virginity to him first, and then Dawson gets jealous because he was going to lose his virginity to.
She doesn't give her virginity to the gay guy. She gives her virginity to Pacey.
Oh, is it? Well, no. She tells Dawson that she does.
Maybe it's been it's my guilty pleasure. I watch it like every couple of years
because she's trying to make him jealous. Because she's like, well, why would you care? You're dating whatchamacallit, and so I'm pretty sure that she tells him that she does, even though she doesn't.
Well, I think she's going to, and I think she tells him that she's going to, that they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But that's when he comes out because he can't bring himself to do it. So
it was just very reminiscent of like the girl next, not that she lives next door to him, but you know what I mean? Like the love triangle of look, something shiny and new comes along and it just distracts you for a minute, but it doesn't like at the core of it, she will never be Joey.
Penelope's not marriageable in her first year on the market. She is a year early. She's out, but she is not of marriageable age. So she is off limits. Nobody talks to her. You see this. No man talks to her. They are acknowledging to Portia Featherington that she made a mistake. You cannot put a girl too young out on the market and expect her to get prospects.
Cressida, Mrs. Not a Spinster, but Penelope... Yes, a spinster. Cressida is older than Penelope.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Cressida is older than Penelope, and yet we're sitting here led to believe that Cressida is not yet a spinster.
But Penelope is.
Because she has prospects. But Penelope is a spinster.
And Penelope only had 2 real years because her first year doesn't count. She was too young. Everybody acknowledged she was too young. She shouldn't have been on the marriage mark. And I think
you can even forgive season 2 because of the scheme with Jack. That they could say, oh, but that's just a write-off year. Like, if they were being kind.
And her father died. She was in mourning for months.
Yes. So, and you're supposed to be in mourning for a year. You're not supposed to return to events and all the rest of it for a year.
10 months.
Yes.
10 months.
Well, they were in mourning, you know. So let's just pretend for a second that that's why. People, if they were being kind, they could have said, oh, well, the second year didn't count. She was in mourning. They had a new lord in the house. Everything was up in arms.
They had to marry off the other daughter that already
had to marry off. Yeah. So there is justifiable reasons as to why Penelope had not been married off in her first 2 seasons. Cressida does not have any of that behind her. Yes, she was courting with the prince. Yes, she was courting with Jack, but neither of those eventuated, and yet she hasn't found anyone else. She has far less excuse than what Penelope does to still be on the marriage mat, and yet she is not a spinster. She is not a spinster.
Her family is more respected than the Featheringtons, and that's the whole reason. The 2 oldest daughters were supposed to marry to help Penelope's prospects. Neither one of them did. So all of those things, Portia being as vulgar as she is, there being no true male heir relative that can help her. She's considered an old maid because there's no way for her to court. There's no way for a man to court her.
As much as neither of us appreciate the Lord Debling love duo, triangle, quadruple, whatever, this season, I do appreciate that Penelope finally got to beat Cressida.
Yes.
Oh, Penelope.
That needed to happen. And so I got to get this thought out of my head because we tangented. So Colin, knowing that we're calling it season 1, but it's not. But knowing that her first season out, she could not get married. She was not of marriageable age. There's no way he could bring her home. Anthony would. This is basically his little sister. 2, she's a Featherington. So I'm sure he's heard, much as we all love her, ain't gonna happen. But season 1, she's too young. She's not of marriageable age. Yes, she's out, but she can't get married. They could have been betrothed, but they would have been stuck being betrothed forever. And Colin wanted to travel. He was planning a trip. So season 1, he needed a distraction because he knew if he got too close to Penelope, he would be in an entanglement. There was this concern in Regency times that you don't want to show. You don't want to show your cards. You don't want to show your feelings unless you are serious and you have intent because you could create an entanglement that's hard to get out of. He didn't want to do that. So he found a distraction. And I think in finding that distraction, seeing every time he visits Marina, guess who's in the drawing room with him? Penelope. Every single time. So I think his pushing the marriage at that point, he believes he's going to A, improve Penelope's prospects for when she is eligible. B, he's going to get Penelope in his drawing room, and there's nothing a future husband can say about it because they're family.
Have you watched Potter yet?
I saw it a long time. And that's probably the story. If you're going to tell me that this is a very similar story, it's probably the story I was thinking of because I told you there is a story.
Beatrix Potter. It's the story about Beatrix Potter who writes Peter Rabbit.
Okay, no, I don't know if I've seen that.
So, spoiler alert for anyone who is wishing to listen. She enters into a secret engagement with the man that she's in love with because he is below her marriage prospect.
Station. Yeah,
below her station. And I don't know whether you want any more spoilers. I'll blur them out for the listeners. But do you want spoilers or do you want to just cry?
You can just tell me.
You will cry, but you love the story.
Yeah, it sounds like, have you ever seen Being Jane?
Yes. Yeah. So, for anyone listening, if you love Bridgerton, I mean, Beatrix, Miss Potter is not smutty at all. There's none of that whatsoever, except for maybe a stolen kiss or two. But it is a beautiful, beautiful piece. I believe it's set in the maybe early 900s, I feel.
Yeah, I'd have to
but yeah, truly beautiful story. Go watch it. It will make you cry. So for today, gentle listeners, we will leave it there and continue on next week's episode where we will begin our side stories for episode 3. If you have anything in particular you would like us to cover or any Bridgerton knowledge you would like to share, please head to our Facebook page, The Ladies Bridgerton, where you can also vote on which deep dive into an individual character that you would like. And if you are enjoying our podcast, please remember to click follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you are listening. Once again, thank you for listening to the musings of two mad women. Yours truly, Tash the Kiwi.
And Lady Patty.